What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Mairis Briedis versus Jai Opetaia, and this is going to be a 12-rounder for the IBF Cruiserweight World Championship, and this fight is going to be Saturday, July 2nd, from the Gold Coast Convention Center in Broadbeach, Australia, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on ESPN Plus in the United States. And to get both fighters' resumes, Mairis Briedis, fighting out of Latvia, holds a record of 28 wins with 1 defeat and 20 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 1 by BoxRec in the Cruiserweight division. He's also the current IBF Cruiserweight World Champion, as well as the former WBC and WBO Cruiserweight World Champion, and he held both those titles on 2 separate occasions. And he's also the World Boxing Super Series Season 2 Cruiserweight winner, because obviously in the first series they had Alexander Usyk took that title. Then in the second, Mairis Briedis took that one. So, just to get into his only loss, it came by majority decision against current unified heavyweight world champion and former undisputed cruiserweight world champion Alexander Usyk, who I just mentioned before, who did win the first season of the World Boxing Super Series in the cruiserweight division. So, that was Briedis' only loss. It was a very close and competitive fight. And, it really seemed at this point that not really many guys could really beat him, most likely in this weight class, aside from Alexander Usyk, who is now obviously moved up into heavyweight and is on to really bigger things, now fighting Anthony Joshua a second time, etc. But to list some of his best victories, Briedis has beaten the likes of Manuel Char by knockout. He's beaten Marco Huck by unanimous decision, Mike Perez by unanimous decision, Noel Javor by unanimous decision. He's knocked out Krzysztof Glowacki in sort of very controversial events in that fight, but it still ended up with him getting the knockout victory. Sorry about that. He also has a majority decision win over Uniel Dorticos in the World Boxing Super Series Series 2 final. And in his last fight, he got a very easy and early third-round knockout victory over Artur Mann. And to get into his opponent's resume, Jai Opetaia, fighting out of Australia, holds a record of 21 wins with no defeats and 17 big wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 35 by BoxRec in the Cruiserweight division. And to list some of his best victories, he has knocked out Daniel Amanan. Sorry if I pronounced his name incorrectly. He has 2 knockout wins over Benjamin Kelleher, and he also has a knockout win over Mark Flanagan. So in my opinion, this fight is going to go in favor of the defending Cruiserweight champion Mairis Briedis. I think Briedis just has much better experience in the ring against top competition, but I do think Opetaia could give Briedis some very, very tough problems in this fight, because his style is very much like a sort of unpolished Alexander Usyk. I know that's obviously a big comparison, but he has sort of the fundamentals like that. A nice southpaw stance, likes to box on the outside, utilize the jab and counterpunching, just like Usyk. Obviously, he's not as elusive and fast on his feet as Usyk, who's really one of the top fighters in these past few years. But Opetaia is a very well-skilled fighter, I just have to say that. But as I mentioned before, the experience is all with Briedis, as he's faced many of the top 15, top 10 guys in the Cruiserweight division in these past couple of years. So Opetaia, as you heard, his best wins are really against relatively unknown fighters in the Cruiserweight division, and his ranking in the Cruiserweight division is not really as high as what would be expected of a really top contender, considering the Cruiserweight division is one of the sort of, I guess you could say, weakest divisions in boxing. That's just the fact. It's one of the weakest divisions when it comes to talent, because when you really get outside that top 15, it gets sort of tough to figure out who's really a known, established guy. But, Opetaia here, this is really his big breakthrough fight. I know, obviously, as I mentioned many times here, he doesn't really have that big major win to get him this title shot, but he fought for a couple junior IBF titles in Australia, and this is yet again in Australia. We do have to remember that it is in Australia, it is in Opetaia's home, So it's really just Briedis facing that pressure of fighting in his opponent's home, even though he is the champion, which I commend him for, because usually we do see champions staying in their realm and in their home and defending their title there. But when it comes to the sort of how this fight's going to go down, I think Opetaia is really going to try and box in this fight. I don't really think he's going to obviously just gun for a knockout or something like that. I think his game plan in this fight is going to be boxing, going to be fighting extremely smart, considering he is the defending, or I should say, the challenger going into this fight. He is really the underdog going into it as well, so he's really going to have to watch out for the power that Briedis just possess, and really just sort of just take it slow, and he's going to really try and fight very technically in this fight, and just really try and get this victory, most likely on points. The thing is, Briedis, we've seen him really fight at mid-range. Even though he isn't really much of a boxer, he's also a very solid counter-puncher. He has very good power as well. And so far in his career, he's shown he has a very, very good chin. He's able to take big power punches from Alexander Usyk, who's got some heavy hands. He was also able to take big power from Yuniel Doricos, who's literally known as the KO Doctor. He does have a very, very good chin. So I don't really think Opetaia is going to really stun him with his power. But, who knows? It's boxing. Anything can happen. But just on paper as of now, I don't really see Opetaia causing much of a threat to Briedis with his power. But Opetaia is really going to be out there looking for counter-punch openings, and really just looking for some shots to be landed, and really just looking for the judges to see where they could give points to him, because he's really going to be very careful in this fight, as opposed to many of his other fights against those lower level guys that he's used to fighting, obviously in front of his home. But obviously for Briedis, I think his game plan is going to be to come forward to put that pressure on Opetaia. Opetaia has not faced anyone like him, like I said many times. So I think that Briedis, if he's able to put enough pressure on Opetaia, he could fold. And at first I was thinking that Opetaia could get stopped mid to late in this fight, but I actually think that Opetaia is going to win a decent amount of rounds in this fight. Do I think it will be clear in favor of Briedis? Yes, but I do think that the judges could have some close scorecards in this fight, considering that some judges like many different styles. I think that, as I mentioned before, that Briedis will come forward in this fight and put pressure on Opetaia, but I mentioned that Opetaia will box, and some judges like that pressure, some judges like that boxing style, and some obviously are more neutral. Yeah, I think that there could be some varying scorecards, and yes, I do think this fight will go the full 12 rounds. And just to break it down round by round, I think the first half, or should I say the first 4 rounds of this fight, will be, I guess you could say, more in favor of Mairis Briedis. I think after 4 it could be 39-37 in his favor. I think round 1 could edge to Opetaia based on just sort of a feel-out process. Opetaia might land a couple of shots on the outside just to give the judges the nod in his favor. So, I think that the next rounds from there on, from rounds 2 to rounds 4, I think Briedis will start to put on the pressure, start to know where he can land some of his shots, and really just take those rounds with ease. From round 5 on to, let's say, round 6, or round 7 actually, from rounds 5 to round 7, I see Briedis, or I see Opetaia making it a bit more competitive, landing some more shots on the outside, figuring out where his openings are, and really just finding where he could land some more shots. But I still think Briedis will edge those rounds as well. So after 7 rounds, it could be 6 rounds to 1 in Briedis' favor. But then from rounds 8 on, I could see this fight being very, very hardly fought. I could see that, or should I say toughly fought, because I think that Opetaia will really start to box pretty beautifully, because we've seen in some of Mairis Briedis' fights that he sort of lacks a bit later on, like against Noel Javor. He started losing rounds late. Even against Mike Perez, the fight was relatively close on the scorecards because of those mid to late rounds. So who knows, in those middle rounds, let's say round 6, round 7, they could go in Opetaia's favor. As I did say, he would start to get a bit more competitive. But rounds 8 through 12, I see them being very hardly fought, very toughly fought, and I see Opetaia actually edging a bit of those rounds. He could edge a couple of them, could actually edge all of them, but yeah, I think his boxing will be a bit more crisp, even though it's later on in the fight. And I know that he's only gone 10 rounds, hasn't gone the 12-round distance, but so far in his career, his gas tank has proved to be okay, because he hasn't really faded late or anything like these up-and-coming prospects in boxing today. A lot of them have. So he seems like he's very solid. He also, I believe, had a decent amateur background. So yeah, I think he'll be pretty fine going the full 12 rounds, even though he's facing one of the best fighters in the world, and definitely the best fighter in his weight class. So yeah, after 12 rounds, I see the judges having some varying scorecards. I could see one judge having it wider in favor of the champion, favoring his pressure fighting style, having it 117-111 in his favor. I see one judge having it a bit more neutral at 116-112, which is what I think the actual fight will be, like scored around there, like 8-4, like 116-112. And I think that one judge will have it a bit more close, favoring Opetaia's boxing at 115-113. So comment down below your thoughts on this fight, who you think is going to win, and just comment down below, obviously, your breakdown of this fight. So overall, Mairis Briedis, I believe, will get a unanimous decision victory over Jai Opetaia to hand him his first ever loss, and I believe that the judges will score this bout 117-111, 116-112, and 115-113. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.